The digital numbers on the clock face shift in silence. 4:29 becomes 4:30 in the morning. I do not need the alarm. My internal rhythm is set to the sun and the season, and my eyes open a moment before the chime begins. I reach out, pressing the button to silence the device before it can disturb the stillness of the room. The air in the bedroom is cool, holding the residual chill of the high desert night. I pull back the heavy quilt, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. My feet find the hardwood floor, grounding me. I sit for a moment, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, cataloging the state of my body. My shoulders are loose. My back is straight. My legs feel rested and capable. There is no stiffness, only the quiet hum of potential energy waiting to be used. I stand and move through the dark house. I do not turn on the lights. I know the geography of this space by heart, the smooth grain of the banister under my hand, the slight creak of the third step, the transition from wood to tile as I enter the kitchen. The kitchen is the first station of the day. This routine is immutable, a sequence of small, precise actions that construct the foundation of my focus. I reach for the kettle. It is stainless steel, cool and smooth against my palm. I fill it at the sink, the water rushing with a clean, consistent sound. I place it on the burner and turn the dial. The gas ignites with a soft whump, a ring of blue flame blooming in the dark. While the water heats, I prepare the coffee. I take down the ceramic grinder. It has a satisfying weight to it. I pour the beans into the hopper. They are dark, oily, and smell of earth and cocoa. I attach the handle and begin to turn it. The resistance is pleasing. The crunch of the beans is a rhythmic, tactile vibration that travels up my wrist. I count the rotations. 100 turns yields the perfect consistency for the French press. It is a slow process, but it wakes up the muscles in my forearm and centers my mind. The kettle begins to sing, a low whistle that rises in pitch. I cut the flame. I pour the water over the grounds, watching the dark crust rise and bloom. I set a timer. 4 minutes. Not 3, not 5. Precision in the small things ensures precision in the large things. While the coffee steeps, I walk to the bathroom to wash. I splash cold water on my face, scrubbing away the sleep. I run a comb through my hair. I look in the mirror, not to inspect my appearance, but to verify my readiness. The eyes looking back are clear. I shave with slow, deliberate strokes, the razor gliding over the skin, leaving it smooth. I rinse the blade, watching the foam swirl down the drain, leaving the porcelain white and pristine. Back in the kitchen, the timer chimes softly. I press the plunger down. The resistance of the mesh filter against the water is firm and steady. I pour the coffee into a thick travel mug. The steam rises, curling in the dim light coming from the window. I take the first sip. It is hot, bitter, and strong. It warms my chest, a physical signal that the day has officially begun. I return to the bedroom to dress. My civilian clothes are simple, chosen for comfort and durability during the commute. Thick cotton socks, denim jeans that have softened with years of wear, a flannel shirt buttoned from the bottom up. I check my pockets, wallet, keys, ID badge, a pocket knife with a bone handle. Everything is in its place. I pick up my bag. It is a canvas duffel, reinforced with leather at the corners. It contains my personal items, a change of socks, a book, a hydration bladder. I zip it shut. The sound of the zipper is a long, confident tear that signifies departure. I walk to the front door, stepping into my casual boots. I lace them quickly but securely. I open the door and step out into the pre-dawn world. The air outside is sharp and smells of pine needles and damp earth. The sky is a deep, bruised purple, the stars beginning to fade as the horizon hints at gray. My truck waits in the driveway. The metal of the door handle is cold. I climb in, the suspension creaking slightly under my weight. I turn the key. The diesel engine catches immediately, settling into a low, throaty idle. I let it run for a minute, watching the gauges climb to their operating temperatures. Oil pressure good, battery voltage steady. I shift into gear and roll down the driveway. The gravel crunches beneath the heavy tires, a sound like crushing sugar. I turn onto the main road. The town is asleep. Streetlights cast pools of yellow on the empty asphalt. I pass the bakery, where a single light burns in the back. I pass the gas station, dormant and silent. There is a profound peace in being awake while the world sleeps, a secret ownership of the morning. The drive to the base takes 40 minutes. As I leave the town behind, the road begins to climb. The asphalt turns to a winding 2-lane highway, flanked by towering Douglas firs. The headlights cut a tunnel through the darkness, illuminating the rough bark of the trees and the occasional reflective marker on the shoulder. I drive with both hands on the wheel, feeling the texture of the road through the steering column. The heater hums quietly, blowing warm air against my legs. I do not listen to the radio. I prefer the sound of the engine and the tires on the pavement. It allows me to think, to mentally rehearse the day ahead. I visualize the equipment. I visualize the aircraft. I visualize the jump. The sky lightens, shifting from purple to a steel blue. Fog clings to the valleys below, thick and white like poured milk. I crest a ridge and see the airfield in the distance. The runway lights are faint amber beads strung out in a perfect line. I turn off the highway onto the access road. The surface changes to packed dirt and gravel. treated to reduce dust. The truck rumbles over the washboard surface, a rhythmic vibration that shakes the remnants of sleep from my bones. I approach the perimeter fence. The chain link is 10 feet high, topped with angled wire. I roll down the window to swipe my badge at the reader. The machine beeps, a high electronic chirp, and the heavy gate slides open on its track with a mechanical grind. I park in my assigned spot. The engine falls silent, and the sudden quiet is heavy. I step out, closing the door with a solid thud. The air here tastes different. It tastes of aviation fuel, ozone, and vast, open spaces. I walk toward the main building, the loft. It is a massive, hangar-like structure with a corrugated metal roof. I unlock the side door. The key turns smoothly in the cylinder. I push the door open and step into the darkness of the facility. I do not turn on the main overhead lights yet. I flip a switch that illuminates the safety lights, casting a soft, amber glow across the vast floor. The loft is a cathedral of competence. The ceiling is 30 feet high. The floor is polished concrete, smooth enough to skate on, stretching out for thousands of square feet. The smell is distinct and comforting. It is the scent of nylon, beeswax, machine oil, and hard work. It is the smell of preparedness. I walk to the locker room. The metal lockers line the walls, standing like sentries. I find mine, number 18. I spin the combination dial. Right to 3 numbers, left to 2, right to the final digit. The lock clicks open. Now begins the transformation. I strip out of my civilian clothes, folding them neatly and placing them on the top shelf. I am transitioning from a person who lives in the world to a person who works to save it. I pull on my work uniform. First, the underlayers. Fire-resistant cotton t-shirt, soft against the skin. Then the pants. They are Nomex, a deep forest green, reinforced at the knees and seat. The fabric is stiff, but yields to movement. I button the waist and zip the fly. I thread a heavy leather belt through the loops, cinching it tight. Next are the boots. These are not ordinary boots. They are Smokejumper boots, custom made, 10 inches high, built of thick black leather with Vibram soles screwed into the heel. They weigh nearly 5 pounds each. I sit on the bench to put them on. I slide my foot in, feeling the heel lock into place. The leather cradles my ankle. I begin to lace them. This is a ritual in itself. I use leather laces, threading them through the brass eyelets. I pull tight at every crossover, ensuring there is no slack. The tension must be perfect, tight enough to support the ankle upon impact, but not so tight that it cuts off circulation. I wrap the excess lace around the top of the boot and tie it off with a square knot. I stand up and stomp my heels, settling the footbed. The sound echoes in the empty locker room. Thud, thud. I walk out onto the main floor of the loft. It is time for the morning inspection. Even though the rest of the crew has not arrived, the equipment waits for no one. I approach the rigging tables. These are long wooden tables, smooth as glass, running the length of the room. This is where the parachutes are packed. I run my hand along the surface of the nearest table. There is no dust. It is pristine. I walk over to the sewing machines. They are heavy industrial machines, capable of punching through layers of canvas and webbing. I check the bobbins. I check the needles. I press the foot pedal of one machine gently, just to hear the motor engage. It purrs with a low, electric hum. Then I move to the racks where the jumpsuits hang. They look like empty men suspended in midair. The suits are padded with Kevlar, thick and bulky. I find mine. I run my hands over the fabric, checking the integrity of the seams. I check the high collar that protects the neck. I check the large pockets on the legs where the let-down tape is stored. I move to the parachute rigging area. My main chute is packed and ready, sitting in its bag on the shelf. It is a dense, square package, weighing nearly 30 pounds. I do not unpack it, but I inspect the exterior. I check the pins that hold the pack closed. They are seated correctly. I check the static line, the yellow webbing that will connect me to the plane. I run the webbing through my fingers, looking for any frays or nicks. It is smooth and strong. I check my reserve chute. It is mounted on the front of the harness. I check the handle, the red ripcord handle. It is secure in its pocket, yet easy to grip. I visualize the motion of pulling it. Look, reach, pull. I walk over to the line gear. This is the pack we carry once we are on the ground. It sits heavy on the floor. I open the main flap. I account for every item. The fire shelter, a foil-wrapped brick that is my last resort. The radio. I turn it on. It crackles with static. I check the battery level. Full. I turn it off. I check the water bottles. 4 quarts. They are full. I check the food rations. I check the headlamp. I click it on. The beam is bright and white. I click it off. I check the tools strapped to the outside of the pack. The Pulaski, a combination of an axe and a hoe. I slide the leather sheath off the blade. I run my thumb lightly across the edge. It is razor sharp, gleaming in the amber light. I inspect the handle, looking for cracks in the hickory wood. It is solid. I replace the sheath. I check the file used to sharpen the tools. I check the fusees, the flares used for backburning. Every item has a home. Every item is in its home. Satisfied with the gear, I walk to the large bay doors that look out onto the runway. I press the button to raise one of them. The motor engages, chains rattling as the heavy door begins to ascend. Cool morning air rushes into the loft, mixing with the smell of the hangar. The sky is fully light now, a pale, cloudless blue. The sun is just cresting the mountains in the east, painting the tarmac in shades of gold and orange. I can see the aircraft parked on the ramp. The Twin Otter. It is a rugged, high-winged plane, painted white with red stripes. It sits squat on its landing gear, looking eager. The propellers are still, the blades feathered. I know every rivet on that plane. I know the sound the engines make when they are synchronized. I know the feel of the door frame as I stand in it, looking down at the forest 2,000 feet below. But that is for later. For now, there is only the quiet satisfaction of readiness. I hear a car door close outside. Then another. Voices drift in from the parking lot. Low, murmuring voices. A laugh. The heavy thud of boots on the gravel. The crew is arriving. I walk over to the break area in the corner of the loft. There is another coffee maker here, a large industrial brewer. I start a pot for the crew. I measure the grounds with a plastic scoop. 1, 2, 3, 4. I slide the filter basket in. I flip the switch. The machine begins to gurgle and hiss. The side door opens. The first of my squad mates enters. He is carrying his bag, his eyes sleepy, but his posture upright. He sees me and nods. It is a small gesture, acknowledging our shared purpose. "Morning," he says. His voice is gravelly. "Morning," I reply. He walks to his locker. I hear the spin of the dial, the click of the lock. The routine begins for him, just as it did for me. I lean against the rigging table, holding my travel mug. The warmth has seeped out of the ceramic, but the coffee inside is still hot. I take a sip. I look around the loft. The light is changing as the sun rises higher. Shafts of pure daylight cutting through the dust motes, dancing in the air. The space is filling up. More lockers opening. The sound of zippers. The sound of Velcro tearing. The sound of water running in the sinks. The sound of men and women transitioning from rest to work. There is no chaos. There is no rushing. Everyone knows their job. Everyone knows where to be. It is a choreography of competence. I walk over to the operations board on the wall. It is a large whiteboard covered in grids and names. I pick up a black marker. I write the date in the corner. I write the current weather conditions. Temperature, 58 degrees. Wind calm. Humidity low. I uncap a red marker. I verify the jump list. My name is at the top of the first load. I cap the marker and set it down. The click is audible, even over the rising hum of the room. I go back to my locker to retrieve my helmet. It is white, scarred from branches and hard landings. A wire mesh face cage protects the front. I inspect the chin strap. I verify the internal padding. I place it on the bench next to me. I sit down and wait. This is the best part of the morning. The work is prepared. The tools are sharp. The machines are fueled. My body is awake and fueled. My mind is clear. I listen to the rising volume of the bass. The phone rings in the dispatch office, a sharp, demanding trill. Someone answers it. The tone is professional, clipped. Smokejumper bass. Go ahead. I do not know if we will jump today. The fire season is unpredictable. We might spend the day sewing parachutes, sharpening tools, and running physical training drills. We might spend 8 hours waiting for a call that never comes. Or in 20 minutes, the siren might wail, a rising and falling tone that hits you in the chest. If that happens, we will be suited up and on the plane in under 10 minutes. But the anticipation is not anxious. It is a heavy, grounded feeling. It is the feeling of a compressed spring. It is the feeling of water held behind a dam. I watch the dust motes swirl in a shaft of sunlight. I flex my hands, opening and closing them. The skin is callous, the grip strength sure. The coffee machine in the corner finishes its brew cycle with a final wet gasp. The smell of fresh coffee layers over the smell of nylon and wax. I stand up and walk over to the bay door again. I step out onto the concrete ramp. The sun hits my face, warm and bright. The air is starting to heat up. I can feel it. The day will be hot. The forest will be dry. A mechanic walks out to the plane. He carries a clipboard. He begins his pre-flight walk around. He touches the propeller, running his hand along the leading edge of the blade. He checks the tires. He opens the cowling to check the oil. I watch him. He moves with the same deliberate slowness that I used to lace my boots. We are all parts of a single machine. The pilot, the spotter, the mechanic, the jumpers. I look toward the tree line at the edge of the airfield. The trees are tall, dark green spires pointing at the sky. They are beautiful, and they are fuel. I turn back to the loft. The lights are fully on now. The hum of conversation is steady. The day has officially arrived. I am ready. We are ready. The work begins. The Paraloft is a cathedral of industry, a vast, open space defined by the geometry of long wooden tables and the hanging silks of drying parachutes. This is where the morning truly begins. Before the fire, before the plane, before the jump, there is the fabric. I step into the room, and the air is distinct here. It smells of unwashed canvas, industrial nylon, machine oil, and the faint, lingering scent of ozone. It is a dry, preserved smell. The lighting is fluorescent, but high up in the rafters, casting a broad, even glow over the workspace. There are no shadows on the packing tables. Everything is illuminated for inspection. My boots make a dull, rhythmic thud against the polished concrete floor as I walk to my station. The base is waking up around me, a hive of quiet, coordinated movement. Other jumpers are already at their tables, heads bowed, hands moving in practiced loops. There is little talk. We are all settling into the same headspace, a collective frequency of preparation. I approach my table. It is 40 feet long, the wood smooth and varnished from decades of nylon sliding across its surface. My primary chute, the DC-7, is a bundle of complexity that requires absolute order. I lift the heavy canvas bag onto the table. The weight is familiar, a dense mass of potential energy. I loosen the drawstring and begin the extraction. The canopy spills out, a river of orange and white ripstop nylon. It rustles like dry leaves, a crisp, synthetic whisper that fills the space between my ears. I anchor the apex of the chute to the tension hook at the far end of the table. Now the dance begins. Packing a parachute is not merely stuffing fabric into a bag. It is an act of architecture. I walk the length of the table, straightening the suspension lines. There are 32 lines, and not one of them can be crossed or twisted. I run them through my fingers, feeling for imperfections. My hands are sensitive to the texture. I am looking for frays, for nicks, for anything that disrupts the smooth continuity of the cord. The lines are white, braided nylon, cool to the touch. I separate them into groups, flaking them out. Left side, right side. I maintain a steady tension. My movements are fluid. I do not rush. Rushing creates mistakes, and mistakes are not an option in this trade. I reach the skirt of the canopy, the bottom edge where the lines attach. I inspect the stitching. The bar tacks are tight, dense zigzags of thread that hold the structure together against the violence of opening shock. They are perfect. I begin the pleating. This is the folding of the gore, the triangular sections of fabric that make up the dome. I grab the fabric, pull it taut, and fold it over. Pull smooth, fold. Pull smooth, fold. The rhythm takes over. It is a hypnotic repetition. The nylon slides over itself with a high-pitched hiss. I am smoothing out the air, pressing the fabric flat, organizing the chaos into a neat, rectangular stack. My breathing syncs with the motion. Inhale as I reach, exhale as I smooth. The world outside the loft ceases to exist. There is only the orange fabric, the white lines, and the wooden table. This is the flow state. It is a meditation in materials. Once the canopy is pleated, I move to the lines. I must stow them. I pick up the stow loops, small rubber bands attached to the deployment bag. I grab a handful of lines, Fold them into a loop and pull the rubber band over them. It requires a specific amount of force. Stretch, twist, lock. The rubber band snaps into place, holding the lines secure but ready to release. I work my way up the bag, creating a neat ladder of stowed lines. Each loop is exactly the same length. Uniformity is safety. I place the folded canopy into the deployment bag. It fits snugly, a perfect marriage of volume and container. I close the flaps. I thread the locking loop. I insert the pin. The metallic click of the pin sliding home is the period at the end of the sentence. The chute is packed. It is ready. I sign the logbook. My signature is a promise to myself. I date it. I write the time, 8 in the morning. I leave the packing table and move to the sewing area. This is the heart of our self-reliance. Smokejumpers are unique. We manufacture and repair our own gear. The sewing machines are heavy, industrial beasts, cast iron and steel, bolted to the tables. I sit down at a Juki machine, a workhorse capable of punching through layers of leather and Kevlar. Today, I am reinforcing a seam on my jumpsuit. The suit is padded, heavy, constructed from thick, fire-resistant material. It is stiff and unyielding. I slide the leg of the suit under the presser foot. I check the bobbin. It is full of heavy-duty thread, thick as fishing line. I flip the switch. The motor underneath the table hums to life. A low, powerful vibration that travels up through the floor and into my legs. It is a sound of latent power. I lower the needle. My foot presses the pedal. The machine engages. Chug, 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 chug. The sound is percussive and steady. The needle drives up and down with blurring speed, punching through the heavy fabric. I guide the material with both hands, my fingers splayed to keep the seam flat. I do not force it. I let the feed dogs underneath the fabric pull it forward. I am merely the steering mechanism. I watch the stitch form. It is a straight, clean line of thread, burying itself into the weave of the Kevlar. I reach the end of the seam and hit the reverse lever. The machine backtacks, locking the stitch. I lift my foot. The machine stops instantly. I raise the needle, pull the fabric free, and snip the thread with a small pair of nippers. The sound of the snip is sharp and final. I run my thumb over the new seam. It is raised, solid, stronger than the fabric around it. There is a deep satisfaction in this. A simple repair, executed perfectly. I oil the machine before I leave, putting a single drop of clear machine oil on the shuttle hook. It gleams under the light. I move from the sewing area to the ready room. It is time to address the hardware. My locker is a vertical metal coffin, painted a dull gray. Inside hangs my harness, my helmet, and my pack. I take out my line gear. This is the pack I will carry once I am on the ground. It weighs 45 pounds without water. I place the pack on the bench. I open the main compartment. The smell of the pack is different from the loft. It smells of pine pitch, wood smoke, and sweat. It smells of the forest. I begin the inventory. This is a ritual I perform every morning, regardless of fire status. First, the fire shelter. It is a hard, rectangular brick wrapped in plastic. I check the pull tab. It is accessible. I check the abrasion case. It is intact. I slide it back into its pouch on the bottom of the pack. It fits with a firm shove. Next, the fusees. These are the flares we use for backburning. I check the wax seals on the caps. They are uncracked. The red cardboard tubes are dry. I pack them vertically, ensuring they are easy to grab. Then the water. I check my canteens. 4 quarts. I unscrew the caps and check the threads. I give them a shake. The water sloshes heavily. I nestle them against the back panel of the pack, keeping the weight close to my spine. I check my rations. MREs. High-calorie, dense food. I check the headlamp. I click it on. The beam is bright white against the locker door. I click it off. I check the batteries. I check the spare batteries. Finally, the tools. I walk over to the tool bench, carrying my Pulaski. The Pulaski is the symbol of our trade, a hybrid tool with an axe head on one side and an adze, a hoe for digging, on the other. The handle is smooth hickory, aged and darkened by the oils of 100 pairs of gloves. I clamp the head of the Pulaski into a vise. The metal is cold and scarred. I pick up a mill bastard file. It is a flat steel file with diagonal teeth. I hold the file at a specific angle against the axe blade. I push the file forward. Rasp. The sound is harsh but clean. It is the sound of metal being shaped. I lift the file on the return stroke. You never drag a file back. It ruins the teeth. Push. Rasp. Lift. Push. Rasp. Lift. I watch the edge. The dull, gray metal is peeling away, revealing a strip of shiny, silver steel. I am creating a new edge. I work the curve of the blade, maintaining a consistent angle. If the angle is too steep, the edge will chip. If it is too shallow, it will not cut. I rely on muscle memory to find the perfect bevel. I stop and run the pad of my thumb perpendicular to the edge. It catches the ridges of my fingerprint. It is sharp. I flip the tool and repeat the process on the adze. The adze is for digging through roots and rocky soil. It needs a steeper, more durable edge. The file sings a lower note against the thicker metal. The rhythm is slower, more deliberate. Once the metal is honed, I unclamp the tool. I take a rag soaked in linseed oil and wrap it around the hickory handle. I rub the oil into the wood. The wood drinks it in. The grain pops dark and rich. The handle warms under the friction of the rag. I am preserving the wood, keeping it flexible so it will not shatter when it strikes a hardwood tree. I wipe down the metal head with a light coat of oil to prevent rust. The tool looks beautiful. It is not new, but it is cared for. It is ready to work. I sheath the head in a leather guard, snapping the brass buttons shut. I strap the Pulaski to my pack. The balance is perfect. I look at the clock on the wall. It is 9:30. The morning is moving with a steady, inexorable pace. It is time for the body. I leave the ready room and step out onto the tarmac. The sun is higher now, burning off the last of the morning chill. The air is crisp and thin. The mountains in the distance are purple silhouettes against a blue sky. I begin my run. I start slow, a jog to loosen the hamstrings. My boots hit the asphalt with a steady cadence. Left, right, left, right. I breathe in through my nose, filling my lungs with the clean mountain air. I breathe out through my mouth. I run along the perimeter of the airfield. The chain link fence blurs beside me. I pass the parked aircraft, the Sherpa, the Twin Otter. They sit silent and waiting, their propellers still. I can smell the aviation fuel, a sharp chemical tang that cuts through the pine scent. I pick up the pace. My heart rate elevates. I feel the blood pumping into my extremities. This is not a race. It is a calibration. I am checking my own engine. I feel the muscles in my calves contract and release. I feel the rotation of my hips. Everything is working smoothly. I reach the end of the tarmac and turn onto the dirt trail that leads into the tree line. The ground softens. The sound of my footsteps changes from a slap to a crunch. Dust rises in small puffs around my ankles. I focus on the trail. Rocks, roots, pine cones. My eyes scan the ground 6 feet in front of me. My brain processes the terrain instantly, adjusting my stride length and foot placement without conscious thought. This is the same skill I use on a fire, moving through rough terrain without stumbling. I run for 3 miles. I do not think about the future. I do not think about the past. I am simply a body in motion. I am a machine circulating oxygen and fuel. I circle back to the base. I slow to a walk, cooling down. My skin is damp with a light sheen of sweat. I feel loose, limber, awake. I head to the locker room to shower and change into my station uniform. The water is hot. I scrub the grease and oil from my hands with a pumice soap. The grit feels good against my palms. I wash away the dust of the trail. I dry off and dress. Green Nomex pants, cotton t-shirt, leather boots. I lace the boots tight. I tuck the laces in so they won't snag. Every detail matters. I walk back to the operations room. It is 10:15. The mood has shifted slightly. The morning prep is done. Now we wait. But it is an active wait. I pour a cup of coffee from the pot in the corner. It is black and strong. I hold the ceramic mug in both hands, letting the heat seep into my fingers. I walk over to the weather map pinned to the wall. It is a large topographic map covered in acetate. A weather officer is updating it with grease pencils. He draws red lines for high-pressure ridges and blue lines for cold fronts. He writes numbers, temperature, humidity, wind speed. I study the numbers. Relative humidity is dropping. 14%. That is low. The fuel moisture levels in the timber are critical. The wind is shifting, coming out of the southwest. That means hot, dry air from the desert. I trace the contour lines on the map with my eyes. Steep canyons, heavy timber. I am building a mental model of the terrain we might jump into today. I am preloading the data. I sit down at a table with two other jumpers. We do not speak much. One is reading a book. Another is whittling a small piece of pine. I take out a whetstone and a small pocket knife. I pour a drop of oil on the stone. I place the blade against it. Swish. I begin to sharpen. Circular motions. Gentle pressure. It is a nervous habit, perhaps, but it is also productive. It keeps my hands busy. It keeps my mind focused on the immediate, on the tactile. The room is quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the scratch of the knife on the stone. We are a coiled spring. We are relaxed, but there is tension underneath the surface. We are ready to launch. I look at my hands. They are steady. There is no tremor. The oil on the stone turns gray with metal filings. I wipe the blade clean. It cuts through a piece of paper with a whisper. I fold the knife and put it in my pocket. I take a sip of coffee. The intercom on the wall clicks. A burst of static. Then silence. We all look up. We look at the speaker. It clicks off. Just a line check. Not the call. Not yet. We go back to our waiting. I lean back in my chair. I watch the dust motes dancing in the shaft of sunlight coming through the window. They move in slow, chaotic spirals. The flow of the morning has brought me here, to this point of stillness. The gear is packed. The tools are sharp. The body is primed. The mind is clear. I am a component in a larger machine, and I have performed my maintenance. I am functioning within tolerances. I close my eyes for a moment, listening to the ambient sounds of the base, the distant rumble of a fuel truck, the wind rattling the halyard against the flagpole outside, the slow, rhythmic breathing of the jumper next to me. It is a peaceful time. It is the deep breath before the plunge. I open my eyes. I am ready. The morning work is done. Now I wait for the lightning. The morning operations are finished. The intense, synchronized choreography of the spotter checks and the physical training has settled into the static heat of midday. The sun is high now, sitting directly overhead, bleaching the color out of the tarmac and turning the shadows beneath the twin Otter aircraft into pools of absolute black. It is time to step away. I wipe the residual grease from the cargo door, latch off my fingers with a red shop rag. The fabric is rough against my skin, smelling faintly of oil and laundry detergent. I fold the rag into a neat square and place it in the metal bin near the hangar door. The lid closes with a dull, heavy thud that echoes briefly in the cavernous space before being swallowed by the silence. Walking from the hangar to the mess area, I feel the shift in atmosphere. The air out here is drier, smelling of heated pine needles and the dusty earth of the airfield. My boots crunch rhythmically on the gravel path. Left, right, left. The sound is crisp, a steady metronome marking the transition from the active duty of the morning to the necessary restoration of the afternoon. I enter the break room. It is cooler here. The air conditioning unit hums a low, constant B-flat note in the window, a white noise that wraps around the room like a blanket. I move to the sink. I turn the handle, and the water comes out cold and clear. I pick up the bar of pumice soap. It is gritty, like wet sand, designed to strip away aviation fuel and tree sap. I scrub my hands, feeling the friction between my palms, working the lather into my knuckles and around my fingernails. I rinse. The water runs gray for a moment, then clear again. I dry my hands with a paper towel, pressing the paper into the skin to absorb every drop of moisture. Lunch is a solitary, methodical affair today. I retrieve my metal lunch container from the refrigerator. It is cold to the touch, covered in a fine layer of condensation that leaves damp prints on my fingertips. I walk to a table in the corner, away from the direct glare of the window, and sit down. The chair scrapes briefly against the linoleum floor, then settles. I unlatch the metal clasps of the box. Snap, snap. I lift the lid. Inside, everything is organized. I have packed this meal with the same attention to detail that I apply to my parachute. Fuel is essential. I take out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. I unfold the paper slowly, smoothing out the creases on the table as I go. The bread is thick, whole grain, substantial enough to hold the weight of the contents without becoming soggy. Roast beef, sliced thin and piled high. Sharp cheddar cheese. A layer of spinach. I take a bite, The textures are distinct. The resistance of the crust, the softness of the bread, the crisp snap of the spinach, the density of the meat. I chew slowly. There is no rush. We are second on the jump list today, meaning there is a buffer between us and the fire bell. I focus on the act of eating, letting the nutrients settle into my system. I reach for my water bottle. It is a heavy, insulated steel cylinder. I unscrew the cap, the threads turning smoothly. I take a long drink. The water is ice cold, a sharp contrast to the ambient heat of the day. I can feel it tracing a cool path down my throat. I place the bottle back on the table. A ring of water forms at the base. I watch it for a moment. The way the light catches the small bead of liquid, magnifying the grain of the table beneath it. Next is an apple. It is a Granny Smith, the skin a vibrant, glossy green. I take a small paring knife from my kit. I slice a wedge. The sound is a sharp crack, followed by the wet slide of the blade through the fruit. I eat the slice. It is tart and cleanses the palate. I slice another wedge. The rhythm is soothing. Slice, eat, slice, eat. I finish the meal and repack the waste. The wax paper is folded back into a small square. The apple core is wrapped in a napkin. I close the lunchbox. Snap, snap. For the next 20 minutes, I simply sit. This is the lull. It is a vital part of the job. You cannot run at redline capacity all day. You must idle the engine. I look out the window. The heat waves are shimmering off the runway, making the distant tree line ripple as if seen through water. I watch a hawk circling high above in the thermal updrafts. It barely moves its wings, just tilting slightly to catch the lift. It is efficient. It conserves energy until the moment it needs to dive. I breathe in deeply, holding the air in my lungs for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 4. My heart rate is slow and steady. Rest time is over. I stand up, push the chair in, and carry my container to the locker. Now begins the afternoon maintenance. Smoke jumping is as much about sewing and sharpening as it is about flying and falling. Our gear is custom, often modified by hand to withstand the brutality of landing in timber. I head to the loft, the large open room where the sewing machines are kept. The smell here is different. It smells of Cordura nylon, heavy canvas, beeswax, and machine oil. There are long tables covered in bolts of fabric and spools of thread, the thickness of fishing line. I have a project to finish, reinforcing the lower leg cuffs of my jumpsuit. The brush on the last fire was thick, full of thorns that snagged the material. I sit down at the industrial Juki sewing machine. This is a heavy-duty piece of equipment, built of cast iron and steel. It does not vibrate. It hums with a feeling of immense contained power. I reach for my jumpsuit and inspect the right leg cuff. There is a small abrasion in the Kevlar reinforcement. It is not a hole yet, but it will be if I do not address it. Prevention is the philosophy of the base. I select a spool of yellow, bonded nylon thread. I place it on the spindle. I pull the thread through the guide, up to the tension discs, down to the take-up lever, and finally through the eye of the heavy needle. The thread is stiff and waxy. I pull 6 inches of it through and lay it back. I take a fresh patch of ballistic nylon, cutting it into a rectangle with my shears. The shears are heavy in my hand, the blades long and sharp. They slice through the thick fabric with a satisfying crunching sound. I trim the corners, rounding them off so they will not catch on brush. I slide the pant leg under the presser foot of the machine. I position the patch over the abrasion. I lower the presser foot. It clamps down on the fabric with a solid click. I place my foot on the pedal and apply gentle pressure. The machine comes to life. Chug, 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 chug. It is a slow, powerful rhythm. The needle drives down through the layers of Kevlar and nylon, punching through with ease, then pulls up, locking the stitch. I guide the fabric with both hands. My fingers spread wide to keep the material taut. I sew a perimeter line first. I turn the fabric 90 degrees at the corner. I sew the next side. Turn, sew, turn, sew. The sound is hypnotic. It is a mechanical heartbeat. I am not thinking about the fire season or the weather reports. I am thinking only of the straightness of the line. I watch the needle bar blur as it moves up and down. I reverse the feed to lock the stitch at the end. Chunk, chunk, chunk. Now I fill in the center of the patch with an X pattern for stability. I guide the fabric diagonally. The feed dogs under the plate grip the material and pull it forward in perfect increments. The result is a row of uniform, slanted stitches, each one identical to the last. It is deeply satisfying to see the repair take shape, to know that this gear is now stronger than it was an hour ago. I lift the foot. I pull the fabric free. I snip the threads close to the surface. I run my thumb over the new patch. It is stiff and rough, a textured landscape of reinforcement. It is ready. I stand up and stretch, feeling the vertebrae in my back align. I leave the sewing loft and head down to the tool room. The tool room is the quietest place on the base. It is lined with workbenches, each one scarred by years of use. The walls are hung with Pulaski's, McLeods, and shovels. The air smells of honing oil and filed steel. I take my Pulaski from the rack. This is my primary tool, a combination of an axe and an adze hoe, used for digging fireline and chopping through roots. It feels familiar in my grip, the hickory handle smooth and worn where my gloves usually rest. I place the head of the tool in the vise, clamped to the workbench. I tighten the handle of the vise, the jaws close around the steel head of the Pulaski, holding it immobile. I pick up a 10-inch mill bastard file. It has a coarse texture. I check the edge of the axe blade. It is dull from the last assignment. The edge rolled slightly where it hit a rock. I put on my leather work gloves. I position the file against the blade at the correct angle. I push the file forward, applying steady, even pressure. Rasp. The sound is dry and abrasive. It is the sound of metal being shaped. I lift the file on the return stroke, never drag it back. As that dulls the teeth of the file, and push forward again. Rasp. I count the strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I inspect the edge. A line of bright, shiny steel is appearing where the dull gray metal used to be. I can see the fresh surface emerging. I adjust my angle slightly to maintain the proper bevel. The goal is an edge that is sharp enough to cut, but thick enough not to chip. Rasp, rasp, rasp. The repetition is meditative. My shoulder moves in a smooth circle. The file bites into the steel, shaving off microscopic curls of metal that fall like glitter onto the workbench. I wipe the blade with a rag to clear the filings. I run the pad of my thumb carefully across the flat of the blade, feeling for the burr that forms on the opposite side. It is there, a microscopic wire edge that tells me I have ground the metal down sufficiently. I flip the tool in the vise to work on the other side. I repeat the process. Match the angle. Push the file. Lift. Push. The sound fills the small room, a rhythmic friction that clears the mind. Once the axe side is sharp, I switch to the adze, the hoe blade. This edge needs to be steeper, designed for grubbing in the dirt. I work the file across the flat edge. This steel is harder, tempered to withstand impacts with rocks. The file sings a slightly higher pitch here. Sing, sing, sing. I finish the filing. I take a honing stone, a small puck of gray grit. I apply a drop of oil to the stone. I work the stone in small circles along the edge of the blade, polishing away the file marks and removing the wire burr. The oil turns dark as it lifts the metal particles. The sound changes to a soft, wet hiss. SHHH, SHHH, SHHH. I wipe the blade clean with an oily rag. The steel gleams. It is a functional mirror, dangerous and beautiful. I run the rag down the wooden handle, checking for splinters or cracks. I rub a little linseed oil into the wood, watching it darken as it absorbs the protection. The smell of the linseed oil is rich and nutty. I loosen the vise. I lift the Pulaski. It feels balanced. It is ready to work. I return the tool to its designated spot on the wall. I look at the row of tools, all sharpened, all oiled, all waiting. There is a profound sense of order here. The chaos of a wildfire is met with the discipline of preparation. I check my watch. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The heat is at its peak. I walk back to the ready room. The other jumpers are there, engaged in their own low-energy tasks. One is reading a paperback book, turning the page quietly. Another is braiding a length of paracord. There is very little talking. We are conserving ourselves. I go to my locker and open it. I check my jump bag. I have already checked it twice today, but I check it again. This is the ritual. I verify the contents by touch. Helmet, hard shell smooth. Eye protection, clean, no scratches. Gloves, leather broken in. Fire shelter. The hard plastic case is secure. I tap it with my fingernail. Click. Radio. I turn it on briefly to check the battery level. The screen glows green, showing a full charge. I turn it off. Water, 4 quarts. Heavy. I close the locker. The latch engages with a solid metallic clunk. I sit down on the bench in front of my locker. I lean back against the cool metal of the lockers behind me. I extend my legs. I close my eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to listen. I hear the distant drone of a civilian aircraft passing miles overhead. I hear the hum of the refrigerator in the break room down the hall. I hear the soft rustle of a map being unfolded across the room. I hear the wind picking up outside, brushing against the corrugated metal siding of the building. I am resting, but I am not idle. My body is relaxed, but my mind is tuned to the frequency of the bass. I am waiting for the telephone to ring, or the squawk box to crackle with a dispatch from the coordination center. But for now, there is no alarm. There is only the slow, heavy passage of the afternoon. I pick up a field guide to weather patterns from the bench. I open it to the section on cloud formations. I read the descriptions of cumulonimbus development. I study the diagrams of updrafts and downdrafts. I trace the lines of the airflow charts with my finger. The paper is smooth. The knowledge is specific. Vertical development, the text reads. Instability. I look up at the window. The sky is a piercing, empty blue. But I know that over the ridges, 50 miles away, the heat is building columns of air, pushing them higher and higher until they condense and shatter into lightning. I am ready for that moment. But in this moment, I am here. I am fed. My gear is sewn. My tools are sharp. My breathing is slow. I turn the page of the book. The paper makes a crisp sound in the quiet room. I continue to read, letting the words flow through my mind. anchoring me in the present, in the competence of the wait. The afternoon stretches out, methodical and calm, a bridge between the preparation and the jump. I settle into the stillness, finding satisfaction in the simple, quiet act of being ready. The sun has begun its slow descent toward the western ridge, casting long, stretching shadows across the blackened forest floor. The intense, golden heat of the afternoon has softened, replaced by the cooling blue light of early evening. The urgent, crackling energy of the fire is gone, replaced by a profound, smoky silence. My work has shifted from the aggressive containment of the morning to the meticulous, almost surgical precision of the mop-up. This is the final push, the phase where patience matters more than adrenaline. I am kneeling in the ash, my body tired, but moving with a practiced, rhythmic fluidity. The perimeter of the fire is a dark scar on the landscape, and my job now is to ensure that scar does not grow. This is called cold trailing. It is a tactile process, primal and exact. I take off my right leather glove, tucking it into my pocket. I need my skin for this. I need the sensitivity of my nerves. I press my bare palm down into the mixture of dirt, ash, and charred pine needles. I close my eyes for a moment, focusing entirely on the temperature. The earth feels warm, like a stone left in the sun, but it does not bite. I move my hand 6 inches to the left, pressing down again, sifting the grit through my fingers. Here I feel a pocket of heat. It is faint, a dull radiation buried 3 inches deep. I slide my Pulaski tool forward. The wooden handle is smooth and warm from hours of use. I use the grubbing end, the wide, hoe-like blade, to gently scrape back the layer of soil. The metal scrapes against a buried root with a dull thud. I expose the source of the heat, a smoldering root, no thicker than my thumb, glowing with a faint, orange ember at its core. I reach for the bladder bag resting on my back. I grab the pump handle and direct the nozzle at the root. With a rhythmic slide of the pump, a focused stream of water hisses as it hits the ember. Steam rises, curling around my face, smelling of wet campfire and deep, rich earth. I spray again, watching the orange fade to black. Then I reach in with my bare hand. I mix the wet mud and ash with the root, kneading it like dough. I squeeze the dirt. It is cool now. It is wet. It is dead out. I stand up, wiping my muddy hand on my Nomex pants. I look down the line. My partner is 20 yards away, performing the same ritual. Kneel, feel, dig, spray, mix. It is a slow dance. We work our way inward from the perimeter, grid searching the ground. We are methodical. We do not rush. To rush is to miss a spark, and to miss a spark is to fail. We do not fail. For the next hour, this is my world. The The repetitive motion is hypnotic. The soundscape is quiet, just the scrape of steel on dirt, the rhythmic shuck-shuck of the water pumps, and the occasional snap of a cooling branch. I enter a flow state where time seems to compress. I am not thinking about the hike out or the dinner back at base. I am thinking only of the square foot of earth directly beneath me. Eventually, the grid is complete. We have touched every inch of the hot zone. The ground is cold. The smoke has dissipated into the clear mountain air. The job is done. Now begins the breakdown, the transition from firefighter to packer. I walk back to the staging area, a small clearing where we dropped our main gear bags earlier in the day. It is time to reassemble the puzzle. I unclasp the waist belt of my line gear, letting the heavy webbing slide from my shoulders. The air hitting my sweat-soaked back feels incredibly cool, a sudden rush of relief. I set the chainsaw on a flat stump. It needs to be dressed before it travels. I take a rag from my pocket and wipe down the bar, removing the cake of oil and sawdust. I check the chain tension, pulling it slightly. It snaps back with a tight, metallic click. Satisfied, I slide the plastic scabbard over the bar. It locks into place. I toggle the switch to off and close the decompression valve. The machine is dormant. I open my large pack-out bag. It is a massive, durable canvas sack designed to hold over 100 pounds of gear. Packing is an art form. It is about density and balance. If the load is unbalanced, the hike to the extraction point will be misery. If it is packed tight and true, the weight will become part of me. I start with the soft goods at the bottom, my sleeping bag, the spare harness, the tent fly. I push them down, compressing the air out, creating a solid foundation. Next comes the hard gear. I place the chainsaw body in the center, close to where my spine will be. This keeps the center of gravity tight. I surround it with the gallons of water and the fuel bottles, nesting them so they cannot shift. I coil the let-down rope. Over and over, I wrap the line around my elbow and palm, creating a perfect tangle-free loop. I secure the end with a half-hitch knot and tuck it into the side pocket. I verify my personal items: knife, headlamp, radio, water bottle. Everything has a designated slot. I run a mental checklist, visualizing each item as I touch it. Nothing is left behind. We leave the forest exactly as we found it, save for the absence of fire. I pull the heavy zipper of the main bag. It tracks smoothly, sealing the contents inside. I engage the compression straps, cinching them down. 1, 2, 3. I pull with my body weight, compressing the bulk until the bag is a tight, dense brick. I sit on the ground and slip my arms through the shoulder straps. I tighten the hip belt first, ensuring the weight sits on my hips, not my shoulders. I take a deep breath, brace my core, and roll forward onto my knees, then push up to a standing position. The weight settles. It is heavy, undeniable, but it is manageable. I adjust the sternum strap across my chest. I am a self-contained unit. My partner gives me a nod. We are ready. The hike to the extraction point is short but steep. We are heading for a granite shelf half a mile up the ridge, a natural helispot where the ship can hover. We walk in single file. My boots find purchase on the pine needles. My breathing falls into a cadence with my steps. Inhale for 2 steps. Exhale for 2 steps. The forest is beautiful in the twilight. The light is filtering through the canopy in shafts of amber and violet. The air is crisp and cooling rapidly. We reach the granite shelf. The view opens up, revealing a sea of green mountains stretching to the horizon. In the distance, the sun is a sliver of fire dipping below the peaks. We drop our packs in a neat row, clear of the landing zone. We wait. This is the decompression before the decompression. The silence returns. I unscrew the cap of my canteen and take a long drink. The water is lukewarm, but it tastes sweet. I sit on a rock, leaning back, looking at the sky. The first stars are beginning to appear, faint pinpricks of white against the deepening blue. Then I hear it, the distant, rhythmic thrum of a turbine. It starts as a vibration in the chest before it becomes a sound in the ears. The helicopter. The sound grows louder, a deep, chopping beat that echoes off the canyon walls. The aircraft rounds the bend of the valley, a sleek shape of red and white. It banks toward us, the rotor wash kicking up a fine mist of dust and pine needles. I turn my back to the wind, shielding my eyes, feeling the powerful downdraft press my clothes against my skin. The machine hovers, the skids just inches above the granite. The door slides open. We move with practiced efficiency. There is no wasted motion. We pass the heavy bags up to the crewman inside. He stacks them and straps them down. We climb in after them, buckling into the canvas seats. I plug my helmet headset into the intercom jack. The world of roaring wind is instantly replaced by the muffled, static hum of the cabin. Tower Jumper 7-4 is off the deck, heading home, the pilot says. His voice is calm, professional. The helicopter tilts forward and lifts. The ground falls away. I look out the window. The spot where we worked, the black circle of the fire, shrinks rapidly. From this height, it looks small, insignificant. We have erased the threat. The vast green carpet of the forest remains intact. There is a deep, quiet pride in that view. The flight back is a blur of vibration and fatigue. The adrenaline has completely faded, leaving behind a heavy, comfortable exhaustion. The rhythmic womp, womp, womp of the rotors is a lullaby, I watch the landscape scroll beneath us, rivers like silver ribbons, ridges like the spines of sleeping dragons. The lights of the jump base appear in the distance, a cluster of warmth in the darkening valley. We touch down on the tarmac with a gentle bump. The turbine winds down, descending from a high-pitched scream to a low whistle. And finally, silence. The blades slow to a lazy turn. We unload. The heavy packs feel lighter now, perhaps because the distance to the loft is short. We walk across the tarmac, the heat of the asphalt radiating up through my boots. The base is quiet. The frenzy of the morning dispatch is a distant memory. Now it is just the night crew and the crickets. We enter the parachute loft. The smell here is familiar: nylon, beeswax, and floor polish. It is the smell of home. We haul our gear to the inspection tables. The breakdown continues. I unpack my bag. The dirty clothes, the ash-stained Nomex pants, and shirt go into the laundry bin. The chainsaw goes to the saw shop for a full service tomorrow. The line gear is hung on its peg. I take my helmet off, inspecting the shell for cracks, wiping a smudge of soot from the visor. I place it on the shelf, facing outward. The most important task remains: the shower. I walk to the locker room. I peel off the layers of the day. The t-shirt is heavy with sweat and gray with ash. My socks are thick with dust. My skin feels coated in a thin film of the forest. I step into the shower stall and turn the handle. The water is hot. I step under the stream, letting it hit the back of my neck. I close my eyes and exhale, a long, shuddering breath that releases the tension held in my shoulders. I watch the water swirl around my feet. It runs dark gray at first, carrying away the soot, the charcoal, the dirt of the mountain. I scrub my arms with a rough sponge. The soap smells of pine and eucalyptus, a clean, sharp scent that cuts through the smoke. I wash my hair, my face, my hands. I scrub the grit from under my fingernails. Slowly, the water running down the drain turns clear. I stay under the spray for a few minutes longer, letting the heat penetrate my muscles. The stiffness in my lower back begins to dissolve. The ache in my legs softens into a pleasant hum. I am clean. I am renewed. I step out and towel off. The cotton towel feels rough and grounding. I dress in fresh clothes, soft sweatpants, a clean cotton t-shirt, heavy wool socks. The fabric feels impossibly light compared to the fire-resistant armor I have worn all day. I walk back to the common room. It is dimly lit. A few other jumpers are there, reading or quietly talking. There is a shared understanding in the room, a silent acknowledgement of the day's work. I head to the kitchenette. I am not just hungry, I am empty. I need fuel. I heat up a plate of leftovers, roasted chicken, potatoes, green beans. It is simple food, but it tastes extraordinary. I eat slowly, savoring the textures. The savory chicken, the starch of the potatoes, the cool glass of milk. My body absorbs the nutrients greedily. After eating, I wash my plate and place it in the rack. The kitchen is spotless. The surfaces are wiped down. Everything is in order. I walk to the bunkhouse. The room is cool and dark, filled with the soft sounds of sleeping men and the hum of the ventilation system. I find my bunk. The sheets are white and crisp, tucked in tight at the corners. I sit on the edge of the bed for a moment. I look at my hands. They are clean, but I can still feel the ghost sensation of the tool handle, the vibration of the saw, the heat of the earth. My body is heavy, pulling downward, asking for rest. I lie back. The pillow is cool against my cheek. I pull the heavy wool blanket up to my chin. The weight of the bedding is comforting. I stretch my legs out, feeling the mattress support every inch of my tired frame. I close my eyes. My mind begins to replay the day, but not in a chaotic way. It sorts the memories like a deck of cards. The jump, the canopy, the fire, the digging, the packing, the flight. Each memory is filed away, completed. There are no loose ends. The fire is out. The gear is stowed. The crew is safe. My breathing slows. It deepens. The rhythm of the room, the fan, the breathing of the others merges with my own. I feel a wave of relaxation start at my toes and roll upward, washing over my knees, my hips, my chest. My shoulders drop another inch into the mattress. The darkness behind my eyelids is velvety and deep. The sounds of the bass fade away. There is only the sensation of warmth and the profound satisfaction of competence. I have done the work. I have finished the day. I drift. The transition is seamless. One moment, I am thinking of the green mountains, and the next, I am floating over them, weightless and free. The sleep is deep, dreamless, and absolute.